So we have an Apple Watch Series 3 42mm. Screen's cracked, no touch. So we're going to first warm the watch up, 80 degrees, and just run a bit of isopropyl down where it's cracked. I'm going to use one of these to get into the glass. For the corners that are broken off, we can use tweezers for any loose shards. Series 3 and 2 a bit more forgiving because you've got a bigger gap between the OLED and the edge of the frame. Series 4 upwards, you do have to be a bit more careful on the edge as the display goes right up to the edge of the glass. And we just got a bit of glue there, which we'll pull off. Pull back the sticky tabs. Lift up the latches. And then simply pull off. Next we're going to use some side cutters and just cut the edge of the glass. we're going to use some side cutters to cut the edge of the glass. There's two types. Got these thicker ones for other jobs, but you want these small thin ones for the watches. And the reason for cutting this is because the display is sunk into the glass. So if you try and cut with your wire, it's going to flex on that OLED and potentially break it. Some people don't do it on the series 4 and 5 and upwards, but I still cut the glass just because that works for me. A bit of tape. And also on my heat mat, I've taped up all of this, so I've got a 3x3 area, so I can get vacuum on this here. And what I can do is just trim that back a bit. And put the vacuum on. We're going to take the touch panel off as well. So we're going to rip this off, touch of ISO, and a BGA removal tool works wonders. You can use ochre sheets as well, like this, but I prefer this. And you want to get just underneath flex. Like that. I've now got to find my wire. So I'm using 0.028mm, a lot thinner, and you want to find the lowest point to get entry into, which looks like there, and I'm pulling down onto the plate. What I might do, because sometimes this tape does interfere, when you come across a raised bit of glass like this, take the tension off and feed the wire over it so it's flat again. And while pulling this way and down, you pull down here and then just move back and forth and let the wire do the work. And now here we're coming to the edge of this and keep pulling down. There we go. I've got another ridge there, so I'm going to be coming up this way a bit more. And still always going downwards, so I'm cutting down to the glass as well. That way you should avoid hitting the polarizer. Now I'm some distance up here, I'm going to slacken this off again. Go over that ridge gently pull down and pull up, and just let the wire do the work to get that level with this side. Now it's level, I'll just carry on as I was before, just slightly forward but always pulling down. And then gentle, and then if you see shards of glass like this, don't go back, continue pulling fresh wire through so you don't pick that up. There you go, that tape's moving there because wire catches onto it. Bit of ISO just to soften that glue up, so you don't pick any glass up and scratch the digitizer, or in our case the OLED, because we're taking the digitizer off. Okay, so that's that. Snap that off so you've got a fresh piece for next time. Vacuum off. Some tweezers to lift up on this NFC chip. Gently pull off. There we go. So there's your digitizer, touch panel. Throw that away. Just going to put some film down because the cleaner I use can make the mats go all a bit warped and funny. So turn it over. Magic sponge, as the Chinese call it, in the UK. It's called Flush Magic Eraser. Just cut yourself off a small piece of square. Delimonene or dilimonene, whatever. It's a citrus cleaner. Much safer than that 8333, whatever it is the Chinese use. Best to avoid it. It's been linked to nerve damage. So we're just going to soak the OLED or the display in that and just leave it for a few minutes. And I've still got the heat on 80 degrees, and as you can see, that will react with the glue that's on the surface. You know when it's ready because the glue will start to pull away quite easily. So yeah, so far the tools we've been using is a Creon Lee screen disassembler, 0.1mm, really good for Samsung OLEDs as well. BGA tool remover, these are really good for getting frames off on LCDs of OLEDs as well, and some small snips. Still not quite ready. Little tip for these, so I have the plate quite warm. I do have a new pair, but a pair of gloves for when you're holding your fingers there for a prolonged amount of time. It does get a bit hot. There we go. It's just starting to roll off now. So as you're moving that eraser over, it starts to take the ochre with it. I might get some new gloves because they're a bit sticky, and accidents happen when you've got sticky gloves. So through them. had it before with sticky gloves, picking up a screen, gone to put it down, moved somewhere else, and the screen's gone with the glove. So there we go, starting to roll off. Sometimes you just use your finger to roll this back. Sometimes when you cut this off, the ochre cuts off quite well with the glass as well, so there's not a lot of cleaning up to do, and sometimes you get a thick piece like what I have here. So there's a bit more elbow grease, I suppose. Be mindful of this edge where the display flex rolls over. Any pressure that way onto it, or even that way, but it's very fragile that way, you'll get lines shooting up, going up through the display. And yeah, that's not really repairable unless you know someone with a flex joining machine, but for this type of model I doubt it will be worth it. So there we go. Just before the edge, we'll peel that by hand. Okay, so what we're going to do now is get rid of that. That cleaner leaves a bit of a greasy substance on the top. So we're going to use some isopropyl for our first clean, just to get rid of all that greasy film on there. And then what we'll do is that can also go to the back. So I'm just going to rinse it off with some iso just for a minute and let the heat dissipate that off and remove any film. I've had it before where some of the adhesive gets taken with the delaminine, gets under the OLED inside the connectors there. Not often, but if something happens once, then it's enough for me to change my method to not getting it again. So I've still got heat on all this time. So now turn the heat off because we're finished, and we're going to quickly just test the LCD. So you've got the LCD or display connector there. No touch panel because that's been removed, and the NFC chip on there. So at this present time, all we're interested in is the display working. Press both buttons to reboot the device. And there we go, we've got a display with no lines. So what we're going to do next is take the equipment over to the laminating bench, and we're going to add the touch panel. So I'll do a cut and be back in a minute. Okay, so there's our display. What I'm going to do next is laminate the glass with an ochre sheet. Sticky tab. It's just to help pull off protective film. It is like a mini clean room, so I've got fans blowing down, sucking air through a filter, so it eliminates dust to a degree. I'm just spraying my fingers with some water so I don't get sticky finger marks on the ochre sheet. So we're just going to pull this film off. All these rubbish sticky pads. There we go. And I'm going to take the bigger side of the film off. Try my best just to touch the edges. And this is going to be aligned by hand. Now that's on, I'm going to use a piece of foam magic mat. Now we remove the camera from the stand, and this will then go into the laminator. So we've got the door open ready. Turn this over. Roughly into the middle. Push it in. Settings, I've got 30 vacuum time, 10 seconds to hold, and 0.1 on your pressure. That will change when I press start. As soon as that cylinder kicks in, to press the head down. There we go, just at the right pressure. see, it's going to pull a vacuum for 30 seconds. Once that 30 seconds elapses, head will come down and laminate. You can use Loca, which is a liquid glue, if you don't have this type of equipment. Either's fine. I just prefer using this now because I've got the gear. There we go. Hopefully we have a nice lamination. So we'll have a quick look. Yeah, there's a couple of bubbles there. Nothing too bad. What we can do is put it in the debubbler. I run this at about 45 degrees, between 4 and 5 bar. I say, just switch the vacuum pump on. Normally I only put this in for a couple of minutes, doesn't need a huge amount of time in there. So while that is in there, what we will do is set up the LCD in a mould. For this cleaning, I like to use acetone. Acetone stops any streaks you get in cleaning. Normally with isopropyl you get streaks on the display. Now if you're using the ochre method and you've got big deep scratches on your panel, you can use a drop of Loca. Check, this is a Series 3 42mm. Series 3 42mm, and the flex cable goes on the top there, so we need to make sure that's the right way round. And the OLED with a touch panel, display, sorry, just fits in there, and then we'll just give it another clean. Nice. Right, so this, we'll check this out. Yes, bubbles have gone. So what we'll do now, I'll just quickly get this back on the mount. And then what I'm going to do next is use one of them rubbish sticky pads. Just checking there's no dust on that panel. There isn't. This fan's quite good for that. Remove, place that on top. They only do this for the series 1, 2 and 3. they don't do a mould for the 5, but to be fair, with the series 4 upwards you can do it by hand. I will be trying I'll be making my own with a 3D printer at some point, just because I like to use a mould really. And it'll be the same again now, same settings on the laminator. However, you don't need to, but I always use this cutout. I'm just a bit nervous when laminating an expensive display. So the idea here, you literally just lift up the panel, rest that on there, pretty much repeat the process of what we've just done. Settings will be exactly the same. Roughly in the middle there. Pressure. The setup I bought from Y&J with the vacuum pump compressor, it really does work well. Can't fault it at all. The only thing I would say is I should have bought a bigger one to do iPads. Squash it down nicely. That mat's called a Magic Mat, 8mm thick. And we'll see what the bubbles are like, which isn't a problem if we do have any. None. No bubbles. I did have to pause then, I was struggling to get the mat off. So what I will do is, because we've got no bubbles at all, nothing whatsoever. Might have a tiny little one there, tiny ones. What we will do is, same again, we'll put that into the debubbler or autoclave, whatever, wherever you're from. And then with that, what we will do is switch on the UV light, and this will, I've got screens everywhere, and that will set the ochre sheet nicely as well. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so it's been literally 2 minutes in here. Deal. So what we'll do now is put that in the UV light box. Okay, so the display is done. Just come out of the UV light. Just have to grab some tester tape. Just a small amount. going to roll this over so it's pretty much level with the other flexes. Okay, so all three will go in now. So I'm grabbing the edge of the ribbon flex there, there's a little notch out, and I'm pulling it in with the tweezers against the metal shields. And that, for me, that pulls in the flexes quite nicely. Oh, a bit slippage there. You have to be careful. Okay, so they're all in. Clamp them all down. Moment of truth. Do a reset again. Okay, so I had to cut the recording because it wouldn't power up, and for some bizarre reason I had to put it on the charger for it to boot. Power button's working, everything seems to be working, and you can tell it's the same watch as I've got the scratch on the top there where I slipped earlier. So I don't have the pin for this one. But as you can see, oh, don't want to be doing that, do I? So we'll power the watch off. Now to bond this, I've used all sorts of adhesives, and the one that was recommended to me when I was learning this was Permatex, and it works brilliant. So Permatex comes in a different type of tube. So what I've done, I've used a cold pressed glue casing. Once it was finished, I extracted out the plunger, cleaned it all out, filled with Permatex, and I use, I think it's a 20 gauge nozzle. It's pink. It's a perfect size for this bezel. So because I've left that a bit too long, I think I might need a new one. Pink nozzle. It's quite a thick adhesive, but it is supposed to help retain the waterproofing. I still don't guarantee it on my repairs. Just put a nice continuous bead. It's a bit awkward to watch this on film. Okay, so that's it. Line up your glass. This will get messy. Once you've got it lined up, clean up the edges. Another good thing with this is tomorrow, once it's dry, you can wipe off any excess still. Ideally you want to leave it overnight. It's quite late here, it's about what is it? Just gone midnight, so I'll check this in the morning. Just make sure the alignment's spot on. Okay, now to keep this down, best thing I find is rubber bands. And of course it switches on every time. There we have it. And then what I'll probably do with this one is add a clear shield screen protector. Because the glass on these, even factory, scratch pretty easy. So I like to use a hydrogel screen protector on these. Any questions, just drop them in the comments, or if anyone's got any other suggestions on a better repair, let me know. Pure ochre.